Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 240 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we'll discuss the new club in town, FC SUPRA du Québec, Roses FC falling to Calgary FC, CF Montreal's victory over Charlotte FC. As always, I'm joined by the man himself, Elias Grigoriotis. Did I say your name again wrong? Jesus, every single
Maybe.
time.
Just maybe.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. God forbid I have a perfect soccer week, but again, it's about as close to a perfect soccer week as I'm allowed to have. Barcelona won, Femini won, Ike won, Montreal won, the Impact, and unfortunately Roses couldn't get it done. But you know what? 4 out of 5, I'll take it.
Four out of
12 points
five.
out of possible 15 is better than what I could have hoped for.
Hey man, listen, and Pat, thanks. Good evening to you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, it's been a crazy week to say the
Yeah.
least. Something happened this week that I don't know, maybe a kind of a big deal, maybe kind of a big deal to this show as well, right, Elias? We
Absolutely.
have a few people Pat telling us, "Oof, United pooped the bed again." And of course they did, because why wouldn't they? Hello, our good friend Hugh Feng Chang on the chat. Thank you so much, guys. Don't hesitate to give your takes, to give your opinions, to respond to what we're saying here in the chat. We're a very interactive show. But before we get started, guys, just a quick reminder that if you listen to a show and like what you hear/see, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe to all of our social media platforms for daily updates. We're on Blue Sky, we're on X, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're everywhere, guys, and we're ready to give you guys the up-to-date information on CF Montreal, Roses FC, and now more than ever, FC SUPRA du Québec. Which yeah, we got to talk about it, Lice. We got to talk about it. Everybody's been talking about it this week. It's been a huge week. On Wednesday night, we were at it's official. Quebec has their third professional soccer team, FC SUPRA, who will be competing in the Canadian Premier League. And they were unveiled on Wednesday night at the Complexe Multisport de Laval. The Ball is Round was present, right? Like, so we saw each other, and it just felt like everybody and anybody that is involved with Montreal soccer was there. Like, it's literally, you turn left and right, and everybody's there. Everybody's
Yeah, no,
there.
it was a
Everybody's
huge turnout. Not just Montreal soccer, not just Quebec soccer, but Canadian soccer too, right? There was a bunch of people from Toronto, a bunch of people from obviously CPL, from Soccer Canada. So yeah. I mean, look, whenever there's a new professional club in Canada, it's obviously a big deal. So I was not surprised, and it was cool. It was definitely a fun time.
Yeah, it was a great event to get to meet people that maybe we hadn't seen them in a bit. People that maybe we've seen online and have seen. Everybody was very open, was in a good mood, a great party mood. But there were a few things that were said that night, right? There were a few things that were said that night that took maybe people by surprise, right? Um, there's a particular moment for me, Elias, that stood out because Rocco Placentino did his speech, right, when he was
Mhm.
introducing the team. And I'll play it now. This is obviously a clip from One Soccer while they were live streaming on YouTube. And let's talk about it, okay? Let's just go ahead and play the clip here.
This team is for all of you. All the kids that are here tonight, all the clubs that are here tonight. I promise you, this team is for Quebec. It's for the kids and the future of this province. We will show all of Canada who Quebec really is.
I remember that moment when we were there. Obviously, we heard it live. When I hear him say that, it kind of made me jump a bit. I was like, "Oh, he's talking to me. He's talking to somebody who believes in the sport in this province. Somebody that not necessarily us against the world kind of mentality, but just like
Mhm.
there is so and again, that's such a tiny little clip. He said so many things. Une équipe d'ici, pour les gens d'ici. What did you think of his speech, of the things that he said? What were your thoughts?
Look, I think everyone who's been following Montreal soccer knows who Rocco Placentino is and what he's about. He's obviously an extremely passionate person. Um, he ran St. Very well. They're one of the top clubs in not just Quebec but the country, consistently across all ages, across all levels, for a good reason. And he's one of those reasons. So you could tell that this man is extremely passionate. And one thing that you will never be able to say about Rocco Placentino is that he doesn't care. The fact that it's kind of like that Atletico Bilbao model in Spain, where they only sign Basque players, and the objective of this club is to only sign Quebec players, is very interesting, and it's something that is quite unique. I hope that it's something consistent, and that they could find that they can remain competitive, because League One and League Two Quebec are full of not just quality players but CPL level players, where they can make the jump if they're given the right resources and they're given the right and with the right commitment. They could absolutely compete at that level. And there's obviously an enormous amount of Quebec players already in the CPL. So I think that they have all the tools in front of them needed to be a competitive team while also staying true to this philosophy. It's just, how far are you willing to take this? And from the looks of it, right, these are people that are obviously very passionate about it, but passion only gets you so far, right? I don't think anyone will ever accuse Joey Saputo of not being passionate about soccer, but it's your level of commitment, right?
And I like that
are you willing to put your money where your mouth is, or will you put your resources where your mouths are? And I think that will determine just how far this gets.
And I like that you bring that up, Elias, because it was kind of a topic. I want to say a whisper amongst the crowd of, where's CF Montreal? Where's the people? There were people from CF Montreal, 100%. There were some from the academy, a few people from CF Montreal, and but the ironic thing, I found it ironic, this is my opinion, was that it was actually Joey Saputo's birthday the next day, right? Now, I don't want to get too much delve into it, because there's no point to it, but whichever angle you see this unveiling and this new team and all that, I'm sorry, but it has Joey Saputo written on it in some way, because what Joey Saputo did for soccer here in Montreal will forever be etched in this history. Whether they expanded the same people that maybe left the Montreal Impact in bad terms, good terms, God knows, I don't know, or maybe the previous FC Supra. It was Joey Saputo that had that, as you mentioned, that passion, right? That drive to wanna build something from nothing here, because there was literally, based on what I've studied and what I've seen, is there was something, but it was very disorganized. He actually brought some kind of structure to soccer here in Montreal, and FC Supra is the new FC Supra for CPL is kind of and we'll see as the months go how that develops with the staff and the new hires and all that and the structure of the club. But it does look like they're kind of picking up the pieces of maybe some of the people that had left the club in the past and trying to make something out of it, right? So it's very exciting. I think it's brought a buzz to the city, a CPL, and it's definitely not just the city, Elias. It's all over Canada. I mean, people are talking about it in the soccer world. It's the new team. It's FC SUPRA du Québec, right? And what do you think of the name? Because I had your
the name was the worst kept secret in soccer. So this has been kind of just out there for a few weeks, if not months now. And so the fact that it's FC Supra is not surprising. What's surprising is FC Supra du Québec. You are planting the flag on all of Quebec. You're not claiming to be from Montreal. You're not claiming to be from Laval. You're playing. It's not like de Quebec, as in Quebec City. It implies it's the whole province. We know that Quebec City was interested in having a CPL team there. I'm sure that interest isn't going away anytime soon, but now their hands are kind of tied, because what do you name your club, right? I'm sure they'll find a creative, if Quebec City ever gets a CPL franchise, I'm sure they'll find a way to work around it and not really have that be an issue. But what the Super are doing are planting the flag of all of Quebec. And so from a marketing perspective, that's great. And especially if they're going to commit to this philosophy of only Quebec players. But besides that, honestly, I was more interested in seeing what, the full aesthetic was going to be. And I don't know how you feel about the logo. I am personally a little bit underwhelmed. I felt like, the Montreal Supers logo from the 80s is so iconic and so, instantly recognizable. And this one feels a lot more generic.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's
comes
not.
out in 15 minutes when, create a custom club and it gives you some preset options. And you
Yeah,
go, there's an S.
I just want to play. I just want to play. But
And you don't care about the custom. I'm not saying they don't care. Obviously, they care. But
yeah,
I feel like if you wanted to lean into that nostalgia, and which they obviously did because they called it the Supra, right? There's a reason they called it that. Then I would have hoped for maybe a bit of a retro look. Maybe we'll get a bit of a retro vibe with the kits. I for one really did like the scarves. I think
yes,
that the scarves looked cool, right? The triangles, that felt more like the Supras than the logo did. The logo felt like it was Bologna's S named cousin. So I didn't really vibe with that much. But again, I'm not a big logo person to begin with.
yeah.
I think logos are important in kind of telling the people who you are. The Supers logo does not do that, but I care more about the from an aesthetic perspective. I care a lot more about the kit than I do about the logo specifically,
And I
because
think that's what we need to
people
really
are going to
wait.
wear.
Yeah.
The kit is what people are going to wear. The kit is what's going to sell, and the kit is going to reflect, the team. So I'm curious to see when that finally drops. But yeah, the logo was, it's a logo.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So it definitely is
Like
something that
compare that to our reaction with the Roses when they dropped their logo.
that's
We were
exactly
like,
what I'm thinking. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
bravo,
yeah.
bravo.
Yeah.
This was like, oh, okay.
But you know what, Elias? And I'm just gonna say like that. Maybe people disagree with me, and that's okay. I just kind of have an opinion on it. I've been thinking a lot about it in these past few days, Elias, and I just feel like, in some way, and I understand it because of the timing of the World Cup, and I did ask this to Rocco Placentino. Um, why now? Why does it feel like this project's a little bit rushed to me in some sense? Like,
I think it's
and they
late.
have, I, sorry.
I think it's late.
Yes, you're late. Yes, it's late, but at the same time, it also feels like it's too fast since Roses FC just came out last year. That's what I mean by it being too fast. I think I don't know. I felt like it was too fast, and it's not really well planned, especially when we're hearing how they're gonna distribute the practice fields and how they're going to be distributing their time on the stadium with Roses FC and their practice, and it just feels like it's rushed and forced. Um, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's gonna work out super well, and everybody's gonna be in the same page, and there's not gonna be any awkward moments between the two. But in that sense, it felt a little rushed. When you speak about the logo, again, nothing that I can say I'm gonna wear that proudly, as you mentioned with Rose FC, where it's completely out of the blue, and it's a fantastic logo, and we wear it. You have it in your background. I have my little flag in the background too. Very proud of the logo, right? FC Supra. Remains to be seen. Remains to be seen how that's gonna show up in the jerseys. Um, but there was something also that was mentioned, I believe, in Jean-François Teotonio's La Presse article about when they asked Rocco Placentino about the team a little bit. He made sure to say that he wants it to be 100% Quebecers on the field. Now,
Yep.
what does that mean? Does it mean born and raised? Does it mean 2-3 years? Nothing was really specific about that. I haven't heard other interviews. Maybe in other interviews he was a little more specific what he meant by that. But what do you think of that? Because I know we have to compare it to Roses FC, where they also tried, in a sense, to bring Quebec products into the field, and in my opinion, it's had its modest mistake. We'll talk. Modest success. We'll talk a little bit more about Roses FC a little bit later, but what do you think of that philosophy? Do you think it's a sustainable philosophy, at least when it comes to the product on the field? And what about the attendance in the stadium because they're local talent? You talked a little bit about the mentality of the other club in Spain, Atletico Bilbao, which does the same thing, but they have their own issues as well. What do you think of that mentality of 100%?
I mean, Robbie's not a fan of it. And if your problem with it is competitiveness, Robbie, I can tell you right now, that's not a concern. If you're like, oh, this team's gonna end up in last place, no, right? The Quebec has more than enough talent at this level to be a competitor. I'm not saying, they're going to be fighting Forge for titles immediately, but to at least, cement themselves as a legitimate, proper competitive team, 100%. Right? There's players all across the CPL from Quebec. And again, this now blends into how serious is ownership about, making this a statement, right? Are you going to go out there and get Ryan Nisley? Are you going to go out there and get Sean Rea? Are you going to go out there and get, Sergei Kozlovsky, who just left the CF Montreal Academy, right? You can get as many League One players as you want. You have first dibs on that. That's not a problem. But if you're looking to make a statement, then personally, right? And again, this may not be immediate. I'm not talking about next year, but one statement that I think this ownership group is going to say, we're serious about having a competitive. You go out there and you get Samuel Piet. You go out there and you get someone like him who embodies Quebec soccer, who embodies the culture, who has been here forever, who is as synonymous with Quebec soccer as it gets, and who is, again, one of the greatest Montreal soccer players ever. So I think that, again, I'm not saying next year because, Samuel Piet, and we'll get into more about Samuel Piet's role in the team in the postmortem when their season is done. But I will give you a little bit of preview. I don't think he's going to be a starter next year, right? At least if this team is committing to a rebuild, they need to bring in some top-level players. And I don't think Samuel Piet, or at least Samuel Piet, has his work cut out for him if he wants to stay a starter. And he has to take his game up another level. But with where he's at in his career, I don't know if it's enough to really just throw him to the front of the pack and become a starter. If he wants to continue to be a starter, the CPL could be a very interesting project. He gets to stay in the same city he's lived in his whole life. His family gets to stay there. And he becomes, again, the figurehead of a brand new project. And also, again, he automatically becomes one of the best players in the CPL by far, right? One of the best players in his position in the CPL. So if you're looking to make a real splash, again, maybe not next year because he's still got contract and, it would be expensive to sign MLS players, but go for it, right? Another player
how do you sell that project to Samuel Piet? How do you sell it without maybe to make him feel bad? Like, hey, dude, like you're not the future of CF Montreal, so come down to the CPL to Quebec. How do you sell
I think next season, if he's not in the starting picture, it's going to become, quite clear that the club still, I think the club will always value him because of not just what he brings on the field, but off it as well. He's always going to be important to that club. And we talked about it a bit after the St. Louis game. He's always going to be important because of what he represents and because of also his work, the work he does. But if he isn't going to be a starter, then SUPRA have a chance to really entice him with a very cool project, because again, you're selling him the project of Quebec soccer. Samuel Piet is one of the foremost members of that culture, right? And so he would be a very interesting pick. And now, it also depends on how much they're going to lean into a cross-city rivalry, how much they're going to be cooperating, right? If Montreal sees this as an opportunity, if the CF Montreal sees this as an opportunity to kind of loan players out there the way that they've loaned out players throughout other CPL teams, that's an option. But again, this is a cross-city team. Sometimes, especially in soccer, that's more of a rivalry than a partnership.
Yeah.
It's a derby. Are you really going to be loaning out players or willingly doing, they've done business with Toronto, but are you going to be loaning out players to a quote-unquote derby rival? That remains to be seen. But I think that if this ownership group is serious, you go out there, you get some Piet, or at least you make an attempt on somebody of that caliber.
What about Alessandro Biello? Bring him back.
That's another player.
Is that a serious investment? Because he's not having any success in Halifax. He hasn't even been on the game day sheets in the past few weeks. But it's name.
That's the thing, right? Just because you are from Quebec and you play in the CPL does not automatically be like, this guy's got to get in there, right? Alessandro Biello is extremely, highly rated on the ball. And maybe the physicality aspect of it is kind of getting in his way. But when you're talking about technical quality, he is very strong. He is at an MLS level, technically, at least what we've seen in training. I haven't seen Alessandro Biello in a year. So it's kind of tough to kind of, see where he's at with his development. but I seriously think that this project is 100% viable and 100% competitive.
Now, Robbie asks, before we get into the pros and cons of the project, Robbie asks, can we win it all though? I mean, look, we were asking the same questions, I believe, Elias. We were asking the same question about Roses FC when they came out, right? But this time around, it's not a new division. It's not a new competition. I mean, it's been existing for a few years now, and so a lot of the teams are very settled in as to what kind of league they are. FC SUPRA is the new boys in town, new people in town, right? So, can they win it all? I think right now, at least for 2026. If you ask Rocco Placentino, sorry, he'll tell you that he thinks they can make the playoffs the first year. That's what he said literally in interviews. But winning it all, that's a whole different ballgame you're talking about, because I mean, teams get competitive and teams are settled in. There's some teams that we've seen with Forge FC Allies when they play TF Montreal. There's such a balanced team with veterans that just they seem unbeatable. So when you go against Forge FC and they're obviously fighting for their lives in the sense that they want to win trophies, a new team like FC SUPRA, Elias, it's gonna take me a minute to get used to saying FC SUPRA so often. Is it's going to be difficult, right? So just aim for the first year. At least my hot take on that is aim for the playoffs. Just aim for the playoffs.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think that's a reasonable. I said top 6. Right? I said top 6 for your first season, especially with a bunch of players that don't necessarily play together, or you're having a bunch of players come up from the semi-pro level, or from U Sports. I think is a great idea, and I think it's a very attainable goal to have top 6.
Yeah. So that's our hot take. Now, one last question before we move on to our next topic. What do you think, Elias, are some of the pros and cons of this new project?
I don't think there are any cons.
Oh,
There's no con. I mean, the only cons are all based in, like, hypotheticals, right? If this falls flat on its face, and if this becomes, financially a pit, and if the team doesn't get any success, and if like, these are all hypotheticals. In terms of actual, like, concrete negatives, there's none for soccer in Quebec, and for the impartial fan. I mean, if you're CF Montreal, you're like, okay, maybe some of these guys are going to be taking some fans away from us on game day. It's possible. Or in terms
what
of
about
viewership.
the other way around? What about the other way around? What if CF Montreal has an excellent season? Yes, you're talking about hypothetical. You can't really say a con, but are they maybe playing too high right now with Roses FC and CF Montreal, both having their own?
No, and Robbie asked the same thing. Will the team draw? If anyone's been to any League 1, League 2 games, especially the big games, they consistently pull 1,000 or 2,000 people. The place, and this is an amateur, field that is not built to have that many people, and they still pull that many people. You put these players in a competitive environment, you add more Quebec players from the CPL, high-level, high-quality players, they're going to sell out Stade Boreal. They're going to sell out Stade Boreal. At least the first couple of games, I guarantee, especially if they get the right players, I guarantee you they're selling it out, because that's what Quebec culture is. It's very grassroots. It's very ingrained in, popular culture, in terms of, like, everyone under the age of 25 is going to do. It's going to go. SUPRA are going to do so well with that demographic. But as you look at the demographic of people that have that come to League 1 games, that come to League 2 games, it's not people in their. It's not families necessarily. It's young kids. It's kids with their friends going to watch the game, and the same thing's going to happen with the SUPRA. And yeah, you'll get some families, obviously, because who would want to take their kid to go see a soccer game, right? But a lot of it is going to be based in the youth, and you're going to see some of these turnouts, and you're going to see some of these fans. It's going to be outstanding. Chan, I don't know what you mean by 2 or 3K in SVG.
In average.
Oh, an average
Yeah.
should have around. They're going to have more than that, especially if they're not terrible. If they're a mid-table team, they're going to fill out like 2/3 or like 3/4 of Stade Boreal.
Yeah,
I think consistently, because again, l'équipe du coin aspect of it already draws about half that much for individual clubs, individual semi-professional clubs. From a professional standpoint, when you're representing the whole city and the whole province, you're going to do so much more than that.
I agree with all of the pros that you said. I do agree that there's the potential for high attendance, that there people love this sport. C'est une terre de foot. So, it's people really like are starting. I believe, my opinion is that soccer is on the rise in Montreal, and it's on the rise fast. And we're seeing it from both sides. As we're seeing the women's side and the men's side both increasing. Montreal Impact are now doing well. Well, now there's another option. There's two other options. As a matter of fact, yesterday when we were at the Roses FC game, I heard a guy joking around with his family. Just an anecdote like that, Elias, because now these kind of jokes can actually be funny. He said he was talking to somebody. I guess he was waiting for a family or something, and he said, "Oh, guess what? I just told this person." They were like, "What?" "I just told them I was that SUPRA." Ha ha, because you can do that now. But anyways, that's just it's a lot of team. But I will say this: I do believe there's a con in this project, just from the get go. And this is, I don't think, is a hypothetical, because it's something that Rocco Placentino said in his speech. When you say that you want your team to be 100% Quebecer, the con is, in my opinion, is that you're closing your doors to maybe people that would be interested in a new project that are not necessarily Quebecers and are talented. I mean, does it, like, isn't that kind of a slap in the face if, say, there's a kid from Toronto that wants to be part of a new CPL team and wants to be part of that adventure, but he's not Quebecer.
I mean, the GTA has two CPL teams on their own.
Yeah, but they don't want to.
You've got twice the opportunities in Toronto that you do in Quebec. So honestly, I'm not even a little bit concerned about if people from outside Quebec want in. If people from outside Quebec want in on this team, that's a good thing, because it means it's got traction. I'm not in the slightest concerned about what if people from outside Quebec want it. There's 8 other teams in the CPL, and there's also the USL, which is at the same level. So there's no shortage of professional football at that level in North America.
But aren't you shutting the door to kids that maybe, again, might be hungry to be part of a new project?
Because again, we talked about this. Quebec is arguably one of, if not the largest, untapped talent pools in North America, professionally speaking. So they're not shutting the door to potential professional players from elsewhere. They're opening the door to professional players already here that either got a chance elsewhere and couldn't make it work, or that never got the chance to begin with because of lack of exposure, because they're committed to youth sports and then couldn't really go into CPL because circumstances change. Stuff happens all the time. This is now, it's not closing the door to everybody else. You're creating a new door that was never there for people that need it. So I'm not the least bit concerned about how people outside of Quebec feel about this philosophy.
Yeah, and I did ask also Rocco. I was like, "Hey, man, is it in the books to maybe bring back some of the because I see like our friend Yufeng Chen that says Jeremy Gagnon La Part and Will Met should come back to home for the first season." I mean, there's so many names. You can freaking write a book of all the names that should probably come back home. But the truth of the matter is, I straight up asked the question on Wednesday night to Rocco, and I said, "Are you planning on bringing back players like Alessandro Briello, Sean Rea, that are, Quebecers that play in the CPL?" And he said, "We'll see." That's he said, "We'll see. We'll see what the future." And it's
time,
okay.
They can't go out there and announce who they're trying to recruit either.
Yeah.
Like before.
I was like, "Come on, give us a hint, man."
But Sam, with a question of why call it the Roses and SUPRA de Montréal and not Laval? Well, the SUPRA are also not from Montreal; they're from Quebec. They're not the Montreal SUPRA; they're the Quebec SUPRA. But the Roses, because Stade Boreal is not a permanent fixture, at least not yet. So the Laval Rocket are permanently in Laval. The Roses are not necessarily permanently going to stay in Laval. So we'll see what happens. But I doubt that Stade Boreal will be their forever home.
And you know what? For now, that covers FC SUPRA. And I mean, we spoke about it extensively, and I know that everybody's been talking about it because it's the news of the week. We're excited about it. We promised it on this show back when it was a rumor, Elias. We promised it on the show. We said we're gonna cover it, and we will cover it. Any news we'll discuss. We'll discuss the new any new signatures that they have, just like we did with Roses FC, and we're also gonna bring in some staff and players to talk just like we did for Roses FC, because we are also interested to know a lot more about the project. But let's go ahead. Speaking of project, we do have to speak about the other project that didn't have the best results yesterday. So let's go ahead and talk about Roses FC, who lost to the Calgary Wild FC yesterday 2-0 at Stade Boréal. Elias, you were there. I was there too. It was a beautiful day, beautiful sunny day, midday game. I had a hard time looking up for that one. But it was a party. It felt like a party. I mean, the people showed up at 12 midday. People showed up and they were ready to see a show. The fifth matchup between Calgary and Roses FC this season. Last match, they had won 5-0. We said it on this show. It was, I think, the first time that we saw Coach Robert Rasatoyu's change in tactical form. But Saturday didn't bring the same result. So, Elias, if you can just pull up the lineup for Rose FC. So, the goalie, we had Anna Karpenko back. We had Lucy Capadonna and Stephanie Hill in the back line. We had Haley Whitaker on the right. In midfield, we had Ali Hess along with Minas. And then we had Noémie Paquin forwards, as well as Monyard. And Megan Sauvé as the left back, Sherim as a right back, as a right mid, and Tanya Boychuk on the front. What were your thoughts when you first saw this lineup, Elias?
I was disappointed. They're going back to the 4-4. They're going back to the 4-4-2. I didn't want that. I didn't want that. We talked about it last week. The 4-2-3-1 worked very nicely. I think it was a much more balanced formation. I think it was much better to play against a variety of different teams and different tactics. And I just found like the team was smoother, right? It wasn't as static. It was a bit more dynamic and a bit more fluid, which is always nice to see. And then I see this and I'm like, no, why you do this to me? And it's just, again, it felt like a bit of a step back. And so, seeing the way the game played out kind of reinforced that, or at least the first, 20 minutes before Noémie Paquin went down with an injury. It felt like that again. So I was a little bit disappointed to see that they went back to the 4-4-2.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think when I saw the lineup, I was looking at one by one. I was like, Karpenko back after Lambert had such a good game, but obviously later on in the press conference, they told us that she had felt a little discomfort during the week. But in any case, then I saw Haley Whitaker was back. I saw no Lara Schenk on the lineup at all on the game sheet, which I forgot to ask why she's not there. And then obviously there was Tanya Boychuk. We talked about Noémie Paquin, but I was surprised also that Charlotte Bibeau wasn't starting in the game. I thought she would have, especially after what you mentioned, that the midfield was really well, worked really well with her in it. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised. A lot of moves there that I just questioned a lot. It was good to see Lucy Capadonna back in her position. But yeah, let's talk about it. So let's start with the defense and goalkeeping. As I mentioned, Annette Karpenko was back. I always feel a little bit skeptical when I see her there because, again, I'm not very convinced about her performance, especially when she's on ball. Yesterday, there was a particular moment that actually made me laugh because we were in the journalist box and Karpenko got the ball. And again, Elias, we've seen this a bunch of times where, she has the ball and then she just kind of, doesn't seem sure about herself. Her body language just kind of shows like she's not really sure what to do next. And I saw a lot of that yesterday, but I do have to say I did also see that she handled the pressure a lot better. I'm not going to blame the goals on her because I don't think they were her fault. I think she did a decent job, at least in the first goal. She had got that first block, which, by the way, Elias, I was right behind the goal when that happened. I got to see it really close. I had actually left the journalist box, the press box, and so again, I don't blame that on her. I think it was an unlucky bounce, but it started before that. About the defense, just overall, I didn't like their performance. I felt that Stephanie Hill struggled a lot. I felt that Calgary really pressured the line, Roses FC line, and they didn't handle it well. Lucy Capadonna also, I felt like she struggled a lot. Before the injury, as you mentioned, with Noémie Paquin, you could see that Lucy Capadonna and both Stephanie Hill and Lucy Capadonna were both trying really hard to make it to pass the ball to Noemi Paquin's side to try to hopefully get that magic back. And yeah, so I don't see. So yeah, that's what I thought. Hey, Lights, you want to laugh? I'm sorry, just a random I don't know why. My wife just texted me right now that she sees my cart behind us. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm doing my podcast. Anyway, so go ahead, Elias. What do you think of the goalkeeping and defensive?
You're embarrassing me in front of my friends.
Shut up.
Don't say that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Mute myself. This is live. I can't re-record it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that Calgary pressed a lot more than any of the last meetings. I think that Capodona and Hill looked particularly uncomfortable when they would just throw bodies forward. And I think Calgary kind of capitalized on that because they just continued throwing the press higher and higher up the field. And I think they did a great job with that, right? We've talked about Calgary playing just absolutely abysmally when they played against Montreal, home and away. This was the other way around. Calgary came with an extremely well-organized game plan. They executed it very well, especially in the first half, and they limited a lot of what the Roses were trying to do. Again, a lot of that comes down to the fact that the Roses in the 4-4-2 system that I am not particularly a fan of were extremely static. There was no movement off the ball. They weren't really breaking down any lines. They weren't putting Calgary under any pressure or asking any real questions. And I think that starts from the back out, right? If Hill and Capodona have a hard time building out from the back, which they've been so good at doing all year, it felt so off-brand. And you know what? Sometimes you're allowed to have an off day. Shit happens. But the problem now is, you've put yourself in a real disadvantage in terms of the table because you're still fighting for second place. I think Toronto is a bit too far away to catch right now, but the fight with Vancouver for second place and home field advantage in the playoffs is it Ottawa? And the fight for second place is very much still up in the air. And I think that they're still in a good spot because they're a point away and they have a game in hand. But you can't be giving away free points for no reason. Because, yeah, you're playing Halifax next week, which is in last place. But then you're playing Vancouver and Toronto, the two most informed teams in the NSL. So those aren't just, difficult games. Those are playoff games. Those are teams that you're very likely going to play in the playoffs at some point. So the fact that they've managed to kind of make their life that much more complicated is disappointing. And it all stems from the fact that Calgary was great at minimizing the effect that Capodona and Hill had. Sauvé and Whitaker, I feel like offensively had a better game. I feel like they were able to find themselves further up the pitch. The problem is that is one of the reasons. That is one of the reasons for the goal, right? They got hit back on the counter for the first goal. They got hit back on the counter, and Hill, Capodona, and Karpenko were kind of just three of them sitting there fighting for their lives. Yeah. And it was unfortunate, but that is the kind of risks you run when you play as high up as you do. But I feel like they offset that with some pretty interesting stuff. I think that Whitaker and Sauvé both bring out the best in their respective wingers. I really like what Kang, and Whitaker do together. Same goes for Paquin and Sauvé, but we've seen Paquin and Sauvé play together already, so it's not as much of a surprise. And it's just unfortunate that we didn't get more out of it because, again, Calgary had an exceptional game.
Yeah. And I do got to say this. I really, and I said it last week, I really, really like what Megan Sauvé, the way Megan Sauvé played with Noemi Paquin, especially with the revelation of Noemi Paquin. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just saw her, and again, it wasn't her fault. It just seemed the flow of the game forced her to be a lot lower and try to help out the center backs. I asked Robert Rossitoyu at the end of the game, Elias, I was like, who's your starting goalkeeper? We're getting closer to the playoffs. There's been a lot of rotation between Lambert and Karpenko. Who's your starter? And he said, Karpenko's my starter. But it's just Lambert's been doing really well too, he told me. And I was like, I don't know.
That's not an answer.
I'm not sure with that. And then on top of that, Elias, he actually added, he's like, I'm still not sure who my starting defensive line is. It could be Leas, it could be, and I'm like, that's not okay. You're heading into the playoffs. As you mentioned, there's some tough games coming up. If you can't really define who your starter is, because maybe again, unluckily, if you want, he has too much. His center backs are way too good, and it's hard to pick a starter. But at the end of the day, somebody, or either you go on three center backs, right? A three back, which I'm sure Elias would love to see a three center back with wing backs. I think it might be a good idea since you have three talented center backs, or you find a way to define who your starter is. Because to me, Karpenko doesn't play at a starting level compared to Lambert. Lambert has been injury riddled, unfortunately, this season, it seems. But still, I don't see Karpenko as being the most the best goalkeeper to be starting for this team right now. Let's go on to the midfield where we had um, Minas and Ali Hess. What did you think of the combination?
I thought the two of them were great with the ball. I think that this is one of Ali Hess's better games. I think she finally got, not finally, but I think once again she's imposing herself a bit more physically in the game, especially against a team like Calgary, who are as physical as they've always been. Having someone like Ali Hess to do some damage and really be the work rate in the midfield is important, because someone like Chloe Minas, who again is really good on the ball, doesn't have the physicality to make up for being two. And again, we talked about my love for the 4-4-2, obviously, that obviously changed when unfortunately Nomi Paquin got hurt and they switched back into the 4-2-3-1 we saw from last week. And I was, it was bittersweet because you never want to see a player leave the game with injury. But I was like, okay, I'm interested now in seeing how the 4-2-3-1 can adapt. And Charlotte Bibo came on and she had a very difficult game. She could not get her rhythm going. She had a couple moments where she was able to find pockets of space, but they were way too scarce. They were once in a blue moon, and I don't think she was able to impose herself on the game like she wanted and like she's capable of. But I'm very curious to see one person in particular in the 10 position, and that's Cherim Kang. Technically speaking, she is so far above everybody else. With the ball at her feet, she is by far the best player on the field, one of the best players in the NSL purely from a technical quality. I think that she can beat almost anybody one-on-one. I think her passing game is very strong, and I think her first touch is the best on the team by far. And having her in the middle of the pitch would maximize her efficiency. And I think that, as much as I like seeing her on the right, and she's a nightmare for a left back, I don't think the team can afford to have her as isolated as she is from the play.
Mm-hmm.
When you have Hess, Minas, Roy, and Bilbo that are as good as they are, you take away the burden of them driving the force creatively speaking and let them focus on being the metronome and the conductors. I think you'll get the best out of them. That does leave a bit of a gap on the right side, but you have wingers. You don't have anyone with Kang's technical quality in the middle of the field, right? As good as Minas and Bibo are with the ball, they're not Cherin Kang. Yeah. And so I'd love to see her get a try. The problem is we've got 3 games left in the season, and the time for trial is kind of done. Yeah. I get it. Someone like Kang came in a couple weeks ago, so she's still relatively new to all this and to the club, and it's like she had a full off season and then 20 games to kind of understand her role and for the coaches to understand where she fits in best. But I'd like to see next year, for example, I'd like to see her in the middle of the park where she can be the most effective and where she could be the most decisive.
Yeah, and in a bit we're going to talk about the future of Roses FC too, because again, we have no idea what's going to happen in the future with them in 2026 or in the playoffs. But yeah, as far as the midfield, what I thought about it, Elias, is I thought they were outplayed yesterday. They were outplayed by Calgary, not simply physically, but also technically. Individually, as you mentioned, Ali Hess, it's her kind of game. It was a very physical game. Minas, excellent technical skill, but again, she can get pushed off really easily from the ball. She still, I found that yesterday she has found ways to kind of like maybe get away from these duels, but by using her technical ability and her speed. But it's still a very individual performance. And I didn't find, and as you mentioned, Bibo came in the 25th minute, and it just felt like she was chasing shadows. Now, Coach Robert Rosatoyu mentioned post-game that that Bilbao was actually feeling a little bit under the weather throughout the week. She wasn't. We don't know how many minutes originally they were planned for her to play yesterday. Maybe 20. We don't know, but she was forced into the game, and so obviously you could tell that. I saw there were spurts of like very like intensity and a lot of, focus on the duels with her, but the rest of the game it really felt like she disappeared, or she was just chasing the ball essentially. And that's not necessarily because Roses FC had a bad game, but mostly because, as one of the players from Calgary FC said post game, when we in the post game press conference, she told us, she said it just felt like we wanted it more today than the other team. And I was like, oh, okay, whoa.
I mean,
So
she's 100% right.
yeah,
Montreal wasn't really showing anything. They weren't, even when they went down 1-0. They were, yeah, they had more of the ball, but I didn't really feel any kind of desperation, any kind of the need to get forward. Because again, we'll talk. I mean, it's kind of a segue into the attackers, I guess. But
yeah.
every chance that was given to them, Montreal, again, in typical fashion this year, squandered them. Montreal could have double the goals they currently have if they're a bit more clinical. And that was the case again, yesterday, because they had 3-point blank chances, let alone, some good shots from the outside and some good crosses. They had 3-point blank chances. Like, it's just you and the goalie. And then one of them went straight to the keeper. The other one went over the net, one went wide. And you're sitting there watching it going, please. And so, yeah, I mean, that's obviously frustrating. And it's a completely different conversation if they score those 3 goals and they win 3-2 and you're like, oh my God, what a game. The Roses do it again. They find a way, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about CF Montreal the same way. Yeah, you're the better team on the field, and you create all these chances, and you lost 1-0. You lost 1-0.
Yeah.
Right, because you didn't put the ball. The point of soccer is to put the ball in the back of the net, and you didn't. Right. We're not going to talk about Calgary's second goal because that's the ref forgetting that she was the ref, I guess, or I don't know what the hell was going on there, because
That was so dumb, man. It happened right in front of me. It happened right in front of the press box, and everybody stopped. Everybody stopped. They were like,
the ref was completely out of position, but then even the assistant referee was just like standing there like mama's a mouse. So look, the refereeing and overall the officiating in the NSL has not been up to the standard of the players and the quality of soccer there. So I hope that the NSL kind of takes steps to improve that, or at least to kind of address that situation, because it really is a problem. It's you're making high quality players and a high quality league seem lesser than it is if your officiating is not up to snuff. Because I'm not saying that Montreal would have won or would have tied if that happened, but what that did in the 80th minute or something, that goal basically killed the game.
Yeah.
Right, because it was a goal that came out of nowhere. It was preceded immediately by a pretty obvious foul, and 2-0, game done now. Everyone's like, just like that. So your game kind of falls flat. And so you're expecting like a crescendo with, the underdog Calgary Wild holding on for dear life to 3 points, while the second place Montreal Roses look to, win, get a result on their home pitch, and then no, never mind. Totally just random goal out of nowhere that never should have counted.
And you know what? Number 4 for Calgary, their forward, she actually, if you look well, she actually stopped.
Yeah,
she stopped the run. She said, I did the foul.
It wasn't a brutal foul, but it's been a foul that's been called a million times since the first ever soccer game. So the fact that the ref was too out of position and the AR was just not aware that she could make the foul call there is beyond me. But the standard of officiating is absolutely something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and Robert said it at the post game. He said, and they asked him, "What'd you think of the call? What'd you think of the foul?" He was like, he didn't want to give a straight answer, but he was like, "You have to understand. Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating because the refereeing is kind of a collaboration between the league and the coach and the field and everything, and it's just kind of ruining it for us." And again, trying to sound as least angry as he could given the circumstances. But it was still infuriating. All of us at the press box were in complete disbelief.
All I'm gonna say is thank Jesus that was not Marco Donadel, because he would have ended up on the field. He would have ended up on the field. He would have the man is going. He's going to jail. No, he's not. But Marco Donadel would have absolutely lost his mind. He would have been the angriest we've ever seen. Like Marco Donadel
wasn't CF Montreal winning 3-1, and he still managed to get a yellow card because he was like attacking the referee on the call.
Never
He's an
change, Marco.
unbelievable
Never
man.
change.
Look,
But
real
yeah,
quick,
that
yeah.
was disappointing.
Just to finish up the attack here, yeah, it just feels right now because I could go individually. Obviously, huge. I can't emphasize this enough, but huge until further notice, huge loss to not have Noemi Paquin, especially at this moment on the field. We've talked about it on this show. She's hit another level. She's found her form, and
Yeah.
just when this team needs it. And then she had a blow. And again, that I looked at the replay and I looked, the footage. I didn't see it in the field when I was in the game because I couldn't see her. But in the clip, it looks painful, and she looks like she's in pain. So we don't know how long she's going to be out. Hopefully, she comes back soon. But as far as the impact on the team, it was tremendous, and especially the attack, because it's almost like you took out by having Claire Monyard on the left middle or left wing.
Mhm.
You took out like a dimension of the game because she's just not the same level of Noemi Paquin when it
It's
comes
just
to the
different
1v1.
profile, right? She's
It's
not as
complete
quick.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her shots are a little bit different too, but it puts a lot more pressure on Tanya Boychuk and Shairim Kang on the side, which, by the way, you're right. I mean, I do agree that Shairim Kang is a whole nother level. You see her running up the right flank, back and forth, back and forth. She just seems to get it. But what I noticed yesterday was that the league is physical. And especially Calgary, and she doesn't seem to be used to that kind of play yet. It also seems like she doesn't really have an understanding with her colleagues yet as to what kind of runs they're expecting to do, which is kind of affecting the flow of the attack. And I saw her frustrated, Elias. I saw her very frustrated yesterday. Bickering a bit with Calgary and all that. But Calgary was also getting in Rose FC head. And Tanya Boychuk, I think she's an excellent player. I think she's very talented. But I also think that right now, in this present moment, at least in the past few weeks, it almost seems like she's overthinking in front of the goal. She's overthinking. I don't know if you saw it early on in the game on a corner kick from Paquin. Tanya Boychuk was right in front of the net, empty net, and she freaking flew it over the goalpost. But I mean, it's just, I think right now, the forwards kind of need to kind of do a kumbaya circle, just relax and just try to figure each other out because the playoffs are fast coming. And yeah, do you think this loss is a little bit worrisome for you? In any case, just to finish up the topic here.
You got to learn from your losses. If they keep doing the same thing, then yeah, I'm concerned. If they go, okay, we'll take this loss on the chin, and then we will look to make actual concrete changes, then I'm not concerned. This team is still good enough to make at the very least the final.
All right. Yeah, I mean, next, I just want them to even bounce back. The most important thing to me is that they bounce back and have a solid performance next week. Then it shuts us off, and whatever we said on this show is worthless. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the great news of CF Montreal. But before we move on, we're going to have a word from our sponsor. Hello, the Ballers Rounders. This show is sponsored by AR Design. I can tell you that in my case, as you can see in my background, I need some change. This is why I reached out to, my wife reached out to Allison from AR Designs to bring some change in my space. You can't see it now, but over the next few weeks, this room is about to get a little funky with the way it looks. I thought Allison will come to my place and turn the place upside down right away. But before changing anything, she made sure to really understand what my vision was for our place and what budget we were working for. And based on that, she gave us some advice and some ideas as to what our place could look like in the future. And that's when we knew that we had reached out to the right person. Like a soccer team working together for the perfect goal, AR Interior Design coordinates every detail of your interior design project, so your home comes together beautifully. From concept to final touches, Allison makes sure every element works in harmony. Visit ardesign.ca today to see her latest interior design project, or follow the links that you see below me on her Instagram, email, or the website, or you can just find the links on the YouTube description. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, AR Design. Alrighty then, so let's get to the last segment of the show. CF Montreal yesterday with a resounding victory over Charlotte FC, 4-1. The red card debacle. We'll talk about that, the impact of the game and all that. Sam has a has a feedback for a sponsor. Shit, yeah, Sam, we're there. All right, so okay, so if you can go ahead and bring up the lineup for the CF Montreal. At goal, we had Thomas Gillier, Jalen Neal, and Brendan Craig as the back line. We had Bodie Hidalgo as the right back, and Alexander Guboglu as a left back. We had in the midfield, we have Matty Longstaff, Fabian Herbers, Victor Lotori, Dante Seeley on the right side, Escobar as the 10, and Owusu as the 9. I think Herbers was more of a left middle, if I remember correctly. So yeah, what thoughts when you seen the lineup? What'd you think of it?
I was very surprised. I was surprised to see Alexander Guboglu get a start. I was happy. I was a little bit concerned because he was playing left back on his offside, and that was, that was usually reserved for when he came on as a substitute. So him starting was a little bit was interesting, but it was a very cool matchup because it was basically going to be him against Jaquil Marshall-Rudy on that side, and hey, if it's gonna kind of put in a one-on-one perspective and see who's fighting for a job next year when Jaquil Marshall-Rudy's loan ends, then yeah, I'm all for it. But I was surprised, but not too not too surprised. I think that my bigger concern was the fact that Vargas on his side is an extremely proficient attacker and is very dangerous and was going to make the defensive side of the work very hard for Guboglu. And the other surprise was Fabian Herbers, taking Ivan Jaime's spot in the starting 11. Ivan Jaime starting on the bench was definitely a surprise. And Fabian Herbers, we know how much Marco Dundell loves Herbers and how highly he rates it for good reason. And it's a very different kind of profile. It's not a one-on-one specialist. It's really more of a setup man. And so those were the two really big surprises. Everything else wasn't too shocking.
Yeah, to me the big omission was Ivan Jaime, as you mentioned, but also David Bugay. I still don't get it. I said last week, I still don't understand. Unless, and I'm not, this is not an attack at Bodie Hidalgo's performance. I thought he had a fantastic performance last night. But I mean, with the work, and we've said on this show a billion times, with the work that David Bugay has done for the team throughout the season, I don't know what he's done to deserve, unless Marco Donadel is using these next few games to evaluate Bodie Hidalgo as opposed
that's exactly the case, I think.
Yeah. And David Bugay has solidified his place.
David Bugay has been excellent this year, especially since the switch to the 4-back. And he's a known quantity. You know what you're going to get out of him, and you know the quality he has. But Hidalgo is a bit more unknown. You don't know how he's going to fit in the system. So having him there, I wasn't too concerned. I also wasn't surprised because he had a very strong game against New York. He shut down Emil Forsberg. He helped Efraim Morales a lot. So I think he had a very good game. And I think, as far as deserving to stay in the starting 11, he 100% did.
Yeah, and that shifts us right over to talking about the defense and goalkeeping. Thomas Gillier, yesterday, I liked his game. I don't think he was tested too much, especially after the red card. Yeah, what a game changer, the red card. Let's just get that out of the way right away before we look at each position. The red card was 100%. First of all, it was a red card.
We'll have two sets of evaluation. We'll have the 20 minutes before the red card, and then the 80 minutes or whatever included at a time after the red card. Those are two entirely different games.
Let's make it simple. Before the red card, CF Montreal sucked. After the card,
terrifying.
After the red card, now we can talk. Let's talk about position by position. So, because honestly,
everybody was bad in the first 15 minutes.
What else are we gonna say? What else do you want to say? Everybody was terrible. But I mean. True. Jalen Neal gave up that first goal. That was not so much Lier's. I think maybe, I don't know if
Gillier had a 2-0 against him. He was just there like, okay, miss the net, please. And then not much else you could do as a goal.
And you're going 1-on-1 against Wilfred Zaha.
Yeah, but Tokramani was right next to him, right? So even if he did focus all his attention on Zaha, you just doink it and it's an open net. So he couldn't even fully commit to Zaha. He really was just like, up a creek without a paddle.
So besides that, like, I think he had Gillier had a decent game, but there's only one thing, and we've talked about it a lot in this show about Jonathan Sirois' ability to his long distribution. It always seemed to be a problem. This is something that I found that towards maybe the middle of the season before Gillier joined the team, I felt like Sirois had figured it out with Prince Owusu, the long distribution. And it's just feels like that portion of the game is kind of back to square one with Gillier, where they're trying to figure each other out, and it leads to a lot of turnovers. So that's the only thing that I want to see improve from Gilia. Besides that, I thought he had an excellent game. Wasn't tested too much. Obviously, the defenders had a much better game once the red card happened. But just kind of going off of what you said, Elias, about Bodi Hidalgo, I think he did a great job yesterday. He had an excellent game. I think he's the only player. I might be wrong, and you'll correct me on this, but I think he was the only one that was actually man marking Wilfred Zaha. I didn't see anybody else man mark, but he seemed to just frustrate them. And that yellow card that he got, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. That was just that's just great defending, and Wilfred Zaha slipped on the grass. That's my opinion. But either way, like he just managed to really defend well, Wilfred Zaha. Jalen Neal, I liked his comeback. He doesn't seem to have missed a beat. He seems to be on top of his game.
Amazing.
I really liked his game. Brendan Craig, you know what I'm getting about Brendan Craig? I don't know if he's the kind of player that I can tell you today, Elias. Maybe things are going to change in the next year, or I don't know, in the next few games. I don't know if he's a player that I could say he's got that George Campbell potential, that Efrain Morales, that you just see that he's a raw talent. I feel like we know what Brandon Craig's going to bring. What's the maximum he can give us? I might be wrong. Maybe
I completely agree with you. But I don't see that as a bad thing, right? I see that the fact that Brandon Craig, who is still 21, Sam kind of saying it. He's a rotational player at best. I think that's totally fine, right? Every team needs rotational players, and if you have someone like Craig, who just because he's a rotational player, I don't think it means he's not good enough. I think that he brings a certain level of composure, quality, and versatility, because you saw him step into the midfield, and he also wasn't as comfortable as he was at center back, but still not do absolutely horribly and be a liability. I think the fact that you have someone like that, who is solid technically, solid defensively, and athletic enough to step into the midfield as well if need be, who's also dynamite at delivering set pieces, I think having a player like that just in your back pocket can only be a good thing, right? Every player you have can be a starting caliber player. That's just not that. If you're expecting that, go watch another sport, because that's a pipe dream, right? Yeah. Having players like Brendan Craig is a good thing, because when Efrain Morales gets hurt, like what just happened, he can step in and deliver a quality game. When someone like Fernando Alvarez isn't in form, he can step in and deliver a quality game. So yeah, you're right. Brendan Craig is not good enough to be an elite starting center back. He is more than good enough to be a very solid and dependable MLS level center back for a long. Again, he's 21, right? So if you give him a couple more years to physically develop and also gain that experience and maturity that you expect from a center back, in 3 or 4 years, he's going to be, maybe he is a starting caliber center back. If not, again, you already know what you're getting out of him. If this is the baseline, he's already a very valuable piece to any team in MLS.
Absolutely, and that might be the win for CF Montreal. It's just that based on the philosophy that they've always preached this club, it seems like the Brandon Craig signings would be the kind of ones that you see go to Europe. But Elias, you might be right. Either way, it's a win if they get any money, because he came in and he joined the club as a trialist. I think too many people forget about that, about the Luca Petrasso, Prince Owusu, Brandon Craig. They joined this team as trialists. If we're talking right now in the month of March, when we were doing the pod, and we're talking about these trialists that have joined the team, I'm sorry, we're expecting little to nothing from them. We're hoping that they give us something, if anything. And now we're almost at the end of the season, and they are important players that are important part of victory. Now, Patrick White said Neil got burned by Zaha on the first goal. Absolutely agree with you, man. Like that does give us a lot of, like, that actually was important moment, because as we mentioned, we were CF Montreal was terrible before the red card, and that was a moment where I think Neil showed kind of his immaturity, maybe inexperience, and not making the right choice, knowing that there's two Charlotte players behind him. And yeah, that's why I won't call him the MVP of this game, but I thought he did a solid job. But again, the red card did help.
We don't talk about anything before the red card. We don't talk about it.
It has to be said because somebody said it. So
no, it's in a quantum universe outside of space and time. It's not a real thing. It's not real.
If I don't look at it, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So Luca, on the left side, I liked Alex Guboglu's game. I thought
he was a nightmare. for Marshall Rudy. Oh my God, he was torturing him.
Yeah, he was just on one yesterday, and I love seeing his performance. I thought he was very active defensively. Now, when he came on the show, he told us that he's more of an attacking minded player, and that his defense he's working on it. But I really liked his energy yesterday on the defense. Now I gotta say, closing in on the 45th minute of that first half, it's no wonder he subbed him out.
He was huffing and huffing.
Exhausted. And I did mention the interview. I did want to show this quick clip, Elias, of a little TBT.
Who's a forward that you're most looking forward to facing this season? Who's on your hit list this year?
I say Zaha as well.
Yeah, he didn't go up against Zaha last night, but definitely probably was a dream for him to be on the same field with that player, because he mentioned it on the show, right? That's someone he really wants to play against. But I thought he had a great game. Again, very, very young talent. Do I see the potential? Do you see the potential, Elias, of him being an important left back or even a right back for this team? Because if you asked me 2 months ago what position Alex Guboglu plays for CF Montreal, I don't know what to tell you.
Here's the issue, right? If you have him as a right back, he's competing against the likes of Bodi Hidalgo and David Bugai. It's not happening. They're too well-rounded, and the advantage that Guboglu brings maybe going forward, especially dribbling one-on-one, gets immediately offset by how good Hidalgo and Bugai are in defensive settings. Unfortunately, I think that's just a reality. On the left side of the field, again, Patrick said it, right? It's probably his best game. Absolutely. He was probably one of the only players who really pressed his advantage when Charlotte went down to 10 men. He was probably the only one that really exploited the numbers, because Harper's tucked a bit more into the middle of the field to create, to outnumber, and then Guboglu just ran every single chance he got the chance. Every single time he got the chance to run, he was gone. So I really like that. But again, I don't want this to cloud the fact that it's 11v11. It's a very rough night for Alexander Guboglu, because against Vargas, it's tough. He already got caught in a really tough spot when they were down to 10 men. He got caught flat-footed. He ended up giving away a dangerous free kick, and he got booked. So there's still a lot of stuff that he needs to work on if he wants to make it as a fullback in this league. I think as a rotational winger, he could do all right, coming off the bench, because again, his 1v1 dribbling is very strong. He with time, experience, maturity, he'll become, more composed when it comes to the final ball and the final touch. But his crossing yesterday was really strong.
Yeah.
He found a lot of great angles. And so that gives me, that excites me a little bit because of that potential. But as a fullback, there's almost too many things he needs to work on defensively and physically before I could say, oh yeah, he's definitely got the potential to be a good fullback. Because David Bugai is 3 years older than him, right? So if you could tell me that the Alexander Guboglu you see right now, in 3 years is a long time for an 18-year-old. But when you look at the gap he has to cover physically and defensively, it's a lot. Whereas as a winger, I think he's already much more developed.
Mm-hmm. And let's go ahead and move on to the midfield, where we had Victor Lottori and Matty Longstaff. And we also had, and that, yes, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Usually we talk about the subs as well, because I think we had Luca Perchaso come in and David Bugai come in a little bit later. Just quickly, maybe one sentence. What do you think of the subs? I don't know. Yeah. They finished the game well. They closed the game well. I'll say that. Yeah, that's it. They did their job. They did what had to be done on a 4-1 victory. Midfield, I mentioned Victor Lottori, Matty Longstaff, and then you had Samuel Piet come off the bench. Now, the reason why I'm pointing that out, Elias, is because we talked about it a lot last week about Samuel Piet's role in this team moving forward. I told you, I don't understand why he's starting. I don't understand why this team continues insisting on starting him. I think they should shut him down. But yesterday, Elias, I think we saw what the future might look like for this team. And not necessarily with Matty Longstaff and Victor Lottori, but Samuel coming in to finish the game. And I loved his performance. What did you think of the Matty Longstaff, Victor Lottori to start?
I think they did exactly what was expected of them. I think they had a really good game. I think Victor Lottori had a game a very good game that we hadn't seen that level in a couple months from him, because after the Leagues Cup he was in great form and he kind of tapered off in the last couple weeks, and he was by no means bad, but definitely was not as omnipresent, it feels like, in the last couple weeks. And yesterday was one of those games where I think Dean Smith, the Charlotte head coach, made a terrible mistake by taking off Jabril Diani when they went down to 10 men. I think that it would have been much more prudent to take off a technical or an attacking midfielder like Westwood or Bronico. Instead, they basically just capitulated the middle of the park. And they had Matty Longstaff and Victor Lattori, who are both horses, run all over them. And they could not keep up with just the pure work rate. And you could tell by the end of the game, they were frustrated. They were throwing in bad tackles, late tackles. They spent 80 minutes chasing the ball, right? So I feel like Charlotte did shoot themselves in the foot by taking out the engine of their team. However, I would have liked to see Longstaff and Latourie press their advantage a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see, especially in the first half, when Charlotte didn't have the chance to kind of tactically adjust. They were kind of just scrambling, right, in the last 20 minutes after the red card, because, you may practice playing with 10 men, but you don't prepare for it mentally, and especially not tactically, for it to happen on with the flip of a switch. And I feel like Matty Longstaff and Victor Latourie smelled blood in the water, and they didn't really do anything with it. So I still think they had a good game. I still think that they put in a clinic in what it means to overpower another team's midfield, especially when it was a 2-on-2, right? Effectively. But I would like to see a little bit more. I want to see that hunger and that maybe that deadliness that you would expect from a midfield that's fighting for a job next year, a starting job next year.
Exactly, and it makes a lot of sense, because I think you hit it in the head, where once Charlotte gets that red card, you can't say that there was a noticeable change in the performance of the midfield. It wasn't like, oh my God, it opened up, the game is so different now. No, they played the same role. They kept the boat afloat. It wasn't until Ivan Jaime, which we'll get to the attack in a second, came into the game, and Samuel Piet also came into the game, that all of a sudden, like you mentioned, they smelled blood in the water, and they were like, we're going. They almost scored a fifth goal. If it wasn't for Bryce Duke
They
doing
could have
a
scored
Bryce,
like 7.
if it wasn't for Bryce Duke doing a Bryce Duke pass in the 95th minute, then they would have probably scored another goal. But the point being is, I liked their performance. I thought they were very energetic, they were all over the field, but they weren't difference makers. They didn't really say, we got the extra guy, we're going to run these people, our opponents down to the ground with, just making them run circles around us or whatever. And that's something that you definitely want to see. Usually, I think that goes a little bit more with football IQ as well, with experience, where players know the little things to do in a game, that you can take advantage of an empty space or a wider space. Marco Donadel's, this, Elias, that Marco Donadel's scheme runs heavily on the wings and the right back and left back, and that's definitely something that the midfielders could have maybe tried to attract more attention to them and try to open the spaces wide, but it's not something we really saw. And then once Samuel Piet came I believe it was maybe the 65th minute, I may be wrong here. What a game changer too. I think he was full of energy. He was clogging up the lines and really allowing CF Montreal to continue putting pressure on Charlotte when Charlotte was just tired. They were exhausted, and he just came full of energy. And then you have an Ivan Jaime that's also full of energy getting into the game. I mean, but I like Samuel Piet's performance from the bench. I'll say it again. What'd you think of his maybe super sub role yesterday to finish the game?
He did exactly what was asked of him. I think that we're talking about where Samuel Piet fits in the starting picture, and at least for this year, I think it doesn't. But he's still elite when it comes to doing what he does, and there's very few players in MLS that can or are willing to do what he does. But Sam makes a good point. They need him another, right? Whether you have Longstaff or Latourie or Piet next to them, you need a conductor. And if they don't have that, then dominating midfields is going to become a little bit more difficult. I don't know who's supposed to go play in the CPL. I don't know if you're talking about
Saint-Pierre. Yeah,
but I didn't say next year. I said in the future. I think that's a great statement to make. But
Robbie listens to everything.
elite, yeah, man. For half an hour, he's elite. Say what you will. For 60 or 70 minutes, I think we saw at least this year against St. Louis and Red Bulls. That's not the case. But for half an hour, yeah, he could be an elite ball winner. Again, when he came on, they were winning 2-1. You want someone to help you close out the game, to kind of, secure yourself against any kind of counterattack, and he's as good as he gets for a one-man counterattack stopper. So yeah, I think his inclusion made sense. I would have liked to see them try and go for the throat a little bit more instead of battening down the hatches, but they did that anyway. So
yeah, and let's talk about the attack, because Hennady Sinchuk is off to the U20 with Ukraine. So you had Dante Seeley and you had Oger Escobar as a 10, and you had, I almost said Ivan Jaime. You had Prince Owusu and Fabian Herbers on the left.
Yep.
I loved Prince Owusu's game yesterday. Forget the goals. That red card, in my opinion, is his work. He's the one that said to the defender, "Hey, come on, do it. You want to do it, right?" Like he tempted the defender to foul him and all that, and that's something that takes. Again, I've said it over and over in this show. I've said it in when I write my articles. This team needs experience. And what you see from Prince Owusu is an experienced player that knows what to do in situations. These are situations that you have to know how to react. And that was this perfect situation for him to kind of, tempt the defender to be like, hey, maybe you can get the ball. Try your luck here. And instead gets the red card. What happens with the red card? It flips the game upside down. It does. But like the thing is, a lot of people, and I see this a lot on X, I see it on social media a lot, and people are saying like, oh, but we CF Montreal, if it wasn't a red card, or blah blah blah. You guys are not wrong. The red card definitely helped. But if it's the other way around, Elias, like it was against Toronto, where the CF Montreal lost, because of the red card, it's also the same conversation where it's like, oh, but would CF Montreal have won if it was even 11-11? It would. I don't think so. I think CF Montreal, in that sense. And I know I'm talking about Prince Owusu, but I think that the veterans, like Herbers, I want to consider Herbers a veteran as well, really stepped up to the plate when it came to taking advantage of the red card. They didn't slow down. They attacked the back line, Charlotte's back line, and they never gave up.
I think your biggest problem was going on Twitter.
I just shut it off, huh?
Yeah, it's always a mess.
No, it's just because I think it's important to read it, just because you have to know. I think it's important to know what people are thinking, what their mindset, and it's just like, I know there's a lot of negativity in this club this year, and maybe past few years too, and they have every right to be negative. But sometimes this team actually does good things, and yesterday it felt like it was a good game that they actually capitalized on an opportunity. Now, if it goes the other way around, Elias, where CF Montreal loses yesterday 3-0. And they have a red card, in the sense that they're up 11-10. We're doing a whole different pot today, Elias, and obviously X is gonna blow it up, trashing the team of how talented and lack of talent they are. But it's not.
Honestly, if they keep it to 3-0 with a red card, good job. You only kept it to 3-0. It could have been so much worse. It has been so much worse. So if they're down 11, in all seriousness, you're right? Same way how if the Roses managed to put away their chances, we're having a different pot. But you're not having a different pot. You're having the pot you have now, because Montreal were clinical, right? And I said it yesterday. There's a million times in the history of soccer where teams have gone up a man and then have not won the game, have not come back, have lost the game. You still need a certain level of quality to score 4 goals. And remember, all 4 of those goals were extremely well worked, right? Even the free kick, the build-up to the free kick was a lot of good play. The free kick itself, Dante Seeley, holy crap, right? That was fantastic. That was so quick and so powerful that Nobody realized it was in until wait, he's celebrating. Holy shit, it's a goal.
Yeah.
So for good reason, right? But you take a look at the Herber's header. Yeah, I think Kalina could have done a bit better and maybe stopped it, but it was a very powerful header, very well struck, right in the side. Good job.
The
Prince's
Matty
goal.
Longstaff assist on the Prince
Exactly,
goal.
right?
What a wow.
Longstaff, Sealy, and Jaime combining to set up, put it on a plate for Prince. Again, an extremely well worked goal, and I don't remember the fourth goal for the life of me.
It was
But
the silly goal, right? So that Jaime like kind of
yeah,
bodied out the
exactly.
defender.
Right, Jaime finally getting on the score sheet for the first time with CF Montreal, picks up an assist. But Jaime picks up an assist by when he laid it off to Sealy, and Sealy just connects. And we know Dante Sealy, right? Some games, everything is on target. The next game, everything is in rose head, and there's very rarely an in between. Today was one of those days where every single time he struck the ball, it was clean. So yeah, he 100% deserves that brace. But let's be honest here, right? Yeah, you can give all the credit for the 10 men to help them create those chances, but you still need a certain level of composure and quality that Montreal have not shown this year to actually convert on it and convert it 4 times. So, and that's including Kalina, who's in fantastic form, and who made a lot of saves, and who deprived Prince Owusu of what arguably should have been a hat trick. So yeah, credit where credit is due. They were still very composed, and they were very lethal in front of goal.
And those 4 goals, out of those 4 goals, 3 of them were scored by trialists, and one of them was an off-season.
I'm not gonna call Prince Owusu a trialist.
He was a trialist. He was a
yeah, okay, sure, but like
I'm not lying. Those are facts.
Yeah, in name only, right? There's no way a TAM player is coming in on trial. Respectfully, that's like maybe it was in name he's here in trial, but like no, he was never. Sealy, Craig, and Petrasso were trialists.
Fabian Herbers was a free signing. Am I wrong, or did they sign?
Fabian Herbers was an acquisition. I think they said Gam, no?
Gam. Okay.
Was he?
All right.
But
so,
yeah, he's not a trialist.
Yeah,
Come
so
on. Like, yeah, he's a trialist, but he's not a trialist.
Bro, I'm just saying the facts,
and tomatoes are a fruit. Welcome to the real world, Andy.
I'm just saying
labels,
the truth, man.
Labels don't mean anything. Come on.
Tell that to Ivan Jaime. Anyways, so we're gonna finish up here with the attack. Do we have any important subs? Ivan Jaime, obviously, very, very impactful game. I was kind of worried at some point he slipped, and I was like, "Here we go again." But no, I thought he, as a 10. I think somebody asked it, and I'm sorry, somebody might have brought it up a little bit earlier, having Jaime as a 10.
Well, we actually got a question from Mark,
yes, Mark,
on Blue Sky about having Ivan Jaime as a 10. What are your thoughts on Ivan Jaime as a 10?
Yeah, the ball is round. I liked it, man. There was a particular moment I saw, I'm sure everybody saw it, where he just did an excellent pass on Prince. Prince obviously missed that. It was a 1v1 with the goalie. I thought he could have done better, but the pass, the quality of pass and the read by Ivan Jaime, well, I haven't seen that in a very long time from CF Montreal.
He's the best player on the team. From a quality perspective, he is. So having him in the 10 is not a surprise that he would do good. It's not, oh my God, wow. Obviously he's going to do good. He's the best player on the team. But I would rather have him in a position where he feels he could contribute the most. Because remember, that pass was fantastic. Remember, right? One of the biggest problems with the attack during the season was that while you had 1v1 specialists on the right in either Sinchuk or Sealy, you didn't have that on the left. I would rather have that specialist on the left, someone who, whenever he gets the ball, he attracts 2 players, and then let Escobar and, hopefully you sign another high-level 10 thrive in the middle of the field and let Jaime do his thing on the left, right? You have... I don't know what's going to happen with Giacomo Vrioni. I don't think he's coming back personally. But
he's out, man.
If you're gonna sign another designated player, make it a 10. Make it a 10, and that way the Ivan Jaime the 10 discussion is purely for rotational purposes and not in a starting capacity. And that way, having Ivan Jaime and a designated player level 10 playing in tandem is a fantastic 1-2 punch, because then you also have Sealy and Sinchuk on the right, and then people keep forgetting about the absolute force of nature that is Prince Owusu.
Yeah, and Samuel said Sealy is the best worst player I've ever seen, which I absolutely love. I absolutely love seeing that. But look, I mean, Ivan Jaime as a 10, I personally see him
I
more as
don't
a left
I
winger.
don't hate it, but yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you.
He's talented. We saw Hennady Central try that 10, and it wasn't the prettiest picture we saw. He needs more experience in it. But you can see Ivan Jaime has that natural 10 tendency, but I like him better as a left winger. Now, just to
Absolutely.
finish it, I know a little bit early we did have a few questions about CF Montreal. We just that weren't talking about the topic at the time. But just oh no, this wasn't it. Sorry. Sirois still has a future in MLS by our friend Hio Fongma. I don't know. I don't know what level he is. I'm not gonna say he's CPL level because I don't think so. But I don't know if it's with
He's
CF
definitely
Montreal.
better than CPL, but I don't know if he's good enough to make it in Europe. That is a question for the winter because, again, personally, I wouldn't hate to have Gilles and Sirois as a goalie tandem. That's a very good goalie tandem to have. So, I know that Montreal has other objectives than just having, two starting caliber goalies, but if that is the case, it really can't be a bad thing.
I don't think there's any way Sirois accepts being second stringer or even competing again for the first string. I think at this point he believes he's a starter. Another question that's a little bit out of context. Samuel Savi tells us, "I miss the Friday night games. Are you guys in favor of it? 100%, man. Give me more soccer every day of the week. I don't care, man. I absolutely love
Absolutely.
it. Just give
Plus,
me
I
more."
think it's good for Apple TV to have variety in their schedule. You can't have every game be Saturday night at 7:30 because if you're trying to market an entire platform of live streamed MLS games, you can't have them all be happening at the same time because then people can't watch them, right? One of the best things about the Premier League or even the NFL is that you've got or in the Premier League specifically, you've got 2 whole days of nonstop soccer. Most European leagues, they play Saturday and they play Sunday, and they've got like 3 blocks. So all of a sudden, you have 6 games you can watch instead of just 1 or 2. So I don't care if you have 2 games on Sunday and then everybody else plays on Saturday. No, you're not maximizing the visibility of your league. Give 2 or 3 games on Saturday, and then split everything else evenly on Saturday and Sunday. And I think that'll, first of all, put a lot more eyes on your product, and second of all, make it a little bit of a change of pace sometimes. Because sometimes I like a matinee game. Montreal is playing against Nashville at 2:30 this Saturday. I love that. I love me a good matinee game. I don't have to go home when it's dark outside. It's
Yeah,
great. I mean, it's going to be October. It's probably
we
going to be dark
still
outside
get
at
we
5
still get
o'clock.
to hit traffic. Yay!
It's Saturday. There's no such thing as traffic on Saturday.
Just construction, no traffic. But but yeah, so no, I absolutely, like I said, give me more soccer, vary it up a little bit. Give the journalist and the crowd a little bit of variety and when they can go in gaps and spaces between the games. It makes things a little bit more interesting. But look, it's been a long show, and we talked a lot about a lot of interesting things. Today's show, Elias, kind of felt like up and down, up and down, up and down. But
Yeah,
it
roller
was a
coasters.
good. Now, just one last question, then we're gonna exit it out. I had a bunch of questions, Elias, but it's been a long show. I just had one last question. I have a hot take question for you at the end of the show.
Uh-oh.
Who has more success next year, in your opinion, 2026? Roses FC, CF Montreal, or FC Supra du Québec? The categories: consistent categories per se, the requirements, right? To be considered a more successful: consistent attendance, results on the field, and trophies. Now, Roses FC obviously can't compete in trophies as much as the other teams per se, but one trophy for Roses FC would be better than all 2 of them. Who do you think has
I
more
mean, the
success?
Roses compete for 2 trophies. The Super compete for 3, and Montreal competes for 4.
For yeah.
Um,
So forget about trophies. That's not one of the categories. But let's talk about
I
attendance
think
and results on the field. Who has the most success next year? And
are
maybe
they
like
are they
trans.
evenly weighed?
Yes. Yes, we'll say it's evenly weighted in Montreal standards.
So attendance is as important as success, and vice versa.
Yes. Yes. I know it's tough. I know it's a tough question. I want you to think
Honestly, the
about it.
Supra.
Huh?
I seriously think the Supra.
The Super are going to have more success in 2026.
I'm
Than all 3
maybe
teams.
not necessarily on the field, but wait until you see the atmosphere for those games. Wait until you see the atmosphere for those. Those games are going to be box office, and they're going to be can't miss games. And I still think that Montreal is going to take steps forward, 100%. But I don't know if quality. I don't know if they're gonna. Again, this is personal experience. I'd love for them to prove me wrong. I don't think they're gonna make enough changes over the winter to warrant fighting for a playoff spot. If they fight for a playoff spot, then I think it'll be Montreal for CF Montreal. If it'll be because they still have pound for pound the best crowd in MLS, in my opinion. But it's the success factor of it. I don't know. We don't know what their offseason is going to look like. If they bring in a 10 and an 8, like elite level, like designated player or TAM level 8 and 10, then I'll pick CF Montreal.
Yeah. And I think I will say CF Montreal Impact because I just feel like people in general are human beings in general are people of habit, and people here in Montreal, at least for now, at least in 2026, in the short future, are used to their 7 p.m. games on Saturday to watch soccer. They're not aware. A lot of them are still not aware that there's a Saturday midday. I'm sure Elias, it's happened to you, the circle around you, that you told them, "Oh, I went to a Roses FC game." They'll be like, "Who?" And I think it's going to be the same thing for the FC SUPRA Quebec at the beginning, in the short future. While CF Montreal, in my opinion, right now, they're telling the fans, buckle up. It's about to happen with us. We, as you
Jokes on
mentioned,
you, Andy. I don't hang out with anybody that doesn't know who the Roses are because they're not worth hanging around with.
Jokes on me. My sad life. All right. So, but this was a great show. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And by the way, guys, any of you guys that want to give us your own hot take, go ahead and do it in the chat. We'll look at it next show. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms, as I mentioned earlier, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, YouTube, everywhere for more content. And follow my account as well as Elias for daily update. A big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week. Also, all of our social media channels. And again, thank you for all of you who tuned in tonight, and see you next week for episode 241 of The Ball is Round.